That's right. Welcome and welcome back to a Marcus Freeman Apologist edition of the Always Irish Show. As always, you can find the program on YouTube. Do hit subscribe if you haven't yet. I'd appreciate it very much. Give the video a thumbs up if you approve of the content. I appreciate that as well. Twitter, search bar, Always Irish, or at Always Irish Inc. Emails, alwaysirishandy@gmail.com. Audio only. Anywhere you want me, you can get me 312-988-15. Call-in line. Thank you to everybody who partaked the last time I did it. So, man, I don't got to tell you. If you're in the Notre Dame family, Notre Dame Nation, Notre Dame fan circle, Notre Dame Twitter sphere, any of it, things change rapidly around Notre Dame land. It doesn't matter if it's in season, out of season, whatever. It's always something with Notre Dame. Now, for the last handful of years, I've been called a BK hater. And now I'm being called a Marcus Freeman homer. Marcus Freeman, I just said Freeman. Marcus Freeman homer, stan. I'm still not exactly sure what that means, but I've been called it a stan, a Marcus Freeman apologist, and on top of all of it, the cherry on top, a Notre Dame hypocrite. And I've even been called legacy media when it comes to Marcus Freeman's tenure. So, in a short period of time, I went from the negative guy all against Brian Kelly and whatever, and now I'm too happy about Freeman, and that's a problem. I think we need to have a talk about this exact dynamic as it pertains to the season that's coming right around the corner. These summer months are going to go by fast, you guys. And then it's Ohio State, Notre Dame time. Now, I talked on my last call-in show, and I posted a question on Twitter about what record would be acceptable and deemed a really strong start for year one of Marcus Freeman. I got over 100 responses to the Twitter question I posed. The most common answer by far is 10-2 is the low end with a New Year's 6 win. That is what most people who responded to this poll will find acceptable and a successful year one for Marcus. That is totally fair. That is a perfectly reasonable position to look at all this. It allows leeway for 2 losses in Marcus's first year, and against a schedule that, compared to the last few years, I think is significantly more difficult. 22 and 23, I think, are significantly more difficult than the last couple years we've had. OSU, Clemson, USC's getting better quickly. Those are all front and center games in everybody's mind, and they should be for good reason. So I agree philosophically and practically. 10-2 or better with the New Year's 6 win would be a strong first year. But what if that doesn't happen? What if we go 9-3 or 8-4? Will that affect your long-term outlook on what Marcus Freeman could be and is going to be for Notre Dame? If you're asking me, I don't think it would at all. Marcus Freeman got this job based on his high ceiling, high end potential. Potential. And you know it's potential because he has no body of work. So it has to be based on potential. There's nothing else it could be based on. So maybe you did, but I never thought next year's team was with looming Brian Kelly holes, a new starting young quarterback, and a brand new staff. I personally wasn't looking at 2022 with that tough schedule as a year where I'm like, yeah, Notre Dame's title contenders for sure. Did any of you or do any of you think that? I hope it happens. I'm open to it. It would be an amazing start to the Freeman era. You find a way to knock off Ohio State, ride that into an 11-1 or something, whatever. I would love it if they did all that in Marcus's first year, but I would never predict it or think it's realistic based off some of the roster weaknesses, new quarterback, new coach, everything we just talked about. What I'm getting at here is, while none of us are going to like it, none of us are going to say it's okay, it's going to feel like a drop back from what we're used to the last 5 years. But I mean this sincerely. If we have to take one step back next year to take 2 or 3 steps forward, I will take that deal for year 1, you guys. I will make that trade and take that deal. But John, if Brian Kelly went 10-2 or 9-3, you would absolutely lose it. Correct. 100% accurate. But this is not Brian Kelly, and this cannot be looked at the same way. It is not apples to apples. Brian Kelly has 45 years of experience. Marcus has 0 as a head coach. He will need a learning curve for some practical on-field things. If he keeps recruiting the way he is, and not only him, but the entire staff, if they keep that up, we're going to be in a great spot after however long it takes for Freeman to learn the ropes of being a head coach, feeling out his staff, getting a new quarterback acclimated to the big leagues, all of that. None of the mishaps Freeman's going to have here are going to be due to not trying hard enough, perceived laziness, ego, selfishness, bad communication. He's doing things, in my opinion, the right way. Let me repeat that. It's a big difference in how I look at these guys, Kelly and Freeman. Things went bad on Kelly. I start asking all these bigger picture questions about communication, what kind of guy he is, how close of a team they are, laziness on the recruiting trail, Kelly's ego getting in the way of what's best for winning, bad communication, no communication, all that. I do not have any of those concerns with the Marcus Freeman first coaching staff. He's doing things right. I will give him a 1-year leash if I need to. I would prefer not to have to. But if I need to for this first year, I'm fine with it. And even if they go 9-3 or whatever, 8-4 at the worst, with a bunch of injuries, a couple bad losses that we shouldn't have. If I got to sacrifice 1 year to end up where I think Marcus Freeman is going to get us, I'll live with it. I'll live with it. Now, I am not saying that if we lose some dumb game to a team we have way more talent than, and it looks like a mess, I am not saying I'm going to get on here and do a post-game show and say everything's okay. No, I'm going to be upset. You're going to be upset. Everybody's going to be upset. But I think it might be a little bit of a mistake to expect Freeman to come in with no experience and not have any rough patches or a learning curve. I don't know if that's realistic. You could hope for it, but I don't think it's realistic. As I've said many, many times before, nobody, and I mean nobody, can undo 11 years of Brian Kelly in 1 year. Nobody. Stop expecting Marcus Freeman to. Nobody. And it's like, well, you know, look at what Kelly did. What do you mean undo 11 years of Brian Kelly? Brian Kelly built us back into relevance, put the foundation in that's allowed us a couple undefeated seasons, playoff experiences, 10-plus wins the last 5 years, all that. I get that. I'm not saying the program's in shambles. I'm just saying you all know Brian Kelly left the roster not able to compete for a title. That's been proven every time we play our biggest game of the year against the biggest opponent or whatever, right? So I'm not saying the program was in the dumpster. I'm just saying you can't make up for his bad recruiting and what happened in the wide receiver room in 1 year. You can't. You just can't. Nobody can make up for years and years of roster mismanagement, bad recruiting, bad development, bad evaluation, combination of those things, whatever. In that, just look at that one area, wide receiver room. The teams that are winning championships and playoff games have dynamite, excellent wide receiver play, usually. Okay? We don't have that. And it's a multiple year issue leading up to this. Nobody, including Marcus, can snap his fingers and fix that in 1 year. That's the kind of thing I think about when I say there may have to be some patience here to a certain level that we don't like. Marcus Freeman was brought here based on his high-level potential, not coming in as a finished product year one. And I feel like some people are expecting that. And I never did. When he was hired, I knew it was based on that long-term potential, not what he is right now as a finished product head coach. So I often hear in response to this when I bring this up, well, the bar has been raised is a popular theme in the Twitter responses to the question I posed. It's been raised 5 years ago, I would say, when we started winning 10 or more games and making it to these playoff games. Yeah, we went undefeated a couple times, but we never beat the team. We beat the teams. We had more talent than, obviously, most of the time. But in the biggest moments, with everything on the line, a chance to change a national narrative, nobody could deny Brian Kelly couldn't get over that hump. So what bar did he raise? He raised it at first, but now 5 years later, we've plateaued. So I see the bar as being flat the last 5 years. We beat the teams we should beat, get in the biggest moments. Kelly couldn't get us over the hump. That's the bar. So it got raised 5 years ago, but I could argue it's been level ever since because we can never get to the next level. Freeman is here to truly raise that bar from that plateau into the next level. I am not realistically expecting to see that jump in 1 year. It's just not very practical to me. And if he pulls it off, he's going to be the next Bill Belichick or whatever. If he pulls that off, more than I'm expecting right away year one out of the gates. So it may take him a recruiting cycle year or two to figure things out and recruit enough to be able to fill the holes Freeman sees from the Kelly left roster to get it to where we could truly compete. Truly competing to me from now on is winning playoff games. That's the bar. That's the bar. Freeman is a long-term upside national championship hire that I deem to be operating the right way for Notre Dame right now. If he needs an extra 1 year to work it out, give it to him. Give it to him. If Ohio State goes bad, Freeman would be 0-2. I would be no less excited about the future of his tenure. The same way, not the same way, but if he was 2-0. Way too early to make those judgments. But I know how Notre Dame fans are, and I know how poisonous social media is, because I'm a part of it. And I'm not saying I'm not. But I know how it's going to go. Notre Dame messed up. They thought they were getting the savior. They jumped the gun. They made a mistake. He doesn't have the experience. Everybody bought into the hype. Now look at him. He's 0-2, never going to win a game. All that stuff is going to come out if we don't beat Ohio State. And I am not here for it. And I'm not going to allow it. This is a way bigger picture and a way larger picture than just 2022. Hope for the best, but do not bail on Freeman if there are rough patches next year or if Ohio State goes poorly. It's not fair and it's not right. Once he gets it right in 1 to 2 more years, you will thank these growing pains. You will thank them. So I hope we're not in this position. I hope we don't have to worry about it and everything goes great. 10-2 or better, make a New Year's 6. That would be beautiful. But if it gets a little rough next year for any reason, try and keep this big picture in perspective. There is a narrative out there that it looks to me like some people act like Brian Kelly's leaving Freeman a playoff game winning roster next year. I don't necessarily believe that. Too many questions at too many really important positions. So I hope that's how it goes, but I don't think that's factual if you actually look at what we're dealing with. So if it takes a year and there's some rough patches, embrace it. Freeman is a long-term upside play, primarily engined by recruiting. He only has 1 year. Let him get his guys in there, 2-3 cycles. See where we're at. Be mature enough to have that patience to look at this as a big picture, high-end upside narrative. Not all or nothing next year. That's just not the case. I get that we all want results right away. We want to see it right away. We want to know Freeman's that dude right away. I agree. I just don't know if it's realistic. If it is, beautiful. We don't have to worry about this discussion. But if it's not, stick with it. Long live # the Freeman factor. Have a good one.